Hello and welcome everybody. Good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for joining us in this session today. The focus of today's session is going to be around the Metaverse. It's probably a year since we first started hearing a lot about the Metaverse. Here at MWC, it was the biggest buzzword of the event in 2022. We've seen a lot of examples where people have been talking about consumer products, and Ifland and other worlds have been created to try and develop the Metaverse into reality. But there wasn't much focus on what does it mean for enterprise. And over the last 12 months, we've started to see a raft of new capabilities that are being delivered that are going to deliver the Metaverse today, and it will continue to deliver Metaverse opportunities for a number of different enterprise businesses around the world. So over the next 45 minutes, we're going to try and really explore what does that look like. We've got a fantastic speaker up next, Joseph Bradley from Tonomus, that will give us the vision of what the Metaverse is and where it can be. And then we've got a fantastic panel from across the industry that can hopefully start to show you where these enterprise products and services are going to come from. So, with all of that said, I'd like to welcome to the stage Joseph from Tonomus, who's going to wow us with what the Metaverse could be. Thank you. There you go, sir.
Thank you very much. Super excited today to talk to all of you about my passion. I'm known as a digital humanist. That means that I believe technology was not made to replace us, but to enhance us as humans. And I was struck by the foreign minister of Tuvalu, COP27. He gave this incredible presentation. And he was sitting in the middle of this lake, of this ocean, and water rising to his chest. And he says, I have no choice but to embrace digitalization, this concept of the metaverse, because my home, the place where I grew up, the place where my people's culture exists, is going away. It's moving, it's shrinking. And he turned to this concept of the metaverse as being a way to save his very, very culture. And when I think about what we've done in technology, and you think about what the metaverse can become, it is simply put a way for us as humans to connect with one another and continue to learn, to love, to move. What does that mean? Well, you recall what happened a couple years ago, a little thing called COVID, right? And I look around the room, and as tech leaders, we delivered basically 4 key words during that COVID crisis that we went through, right? All the great technology that we brought together to bear to help solve this problem, those 4 key words that we all know and we all learn to love. You're on mute. You're on mute. Clearly, we can do much better than that. And so we got to start with, what is this metaverse? What does it mean? I got a 7-year-old nephew. His name is Malcolm. He can't say Joseph well, so he calls me Uncle Jojo. And in Malcolm's metaverse, as he would call it, it's all about gaming, man. Uncle Jojo, give me some Roblox money. That's his metaverse. It's all about interactive gaming and meeting and connecting with his friends. On the flip side, we've also got this social metaverse, right? The concept where we're all putting on headgears and trying to figure out how we're going to connect with one another, whether you like half bodies, full bodies, but it's all social metaverse. Or we get into this concept where actually we're talking about the industrial metaverse, right? Where we're looking at modeling cities and buildings and assets. You see, here's the thing. All these 3 examples all focus on one element, the digital world. In fact, they obsess with the digital world. And so it's starting this false dichotomy Are you a matrix lover? Do you think we're going to live in the physical world, or do you think we're going to live in the digital world? I don't think you're going to live in the physical world. I don't think you're going to live in the digital world. I just think you're going to be living, period. And so this false dichotomy is permeating this notion of what we call the metaverse. And for us in Tonomus, the metaverse is very simply put, it's a link between the digital and physical worlds. You have to have both in order to create that seamless ultimate experience. And so, what can the metaverse ultimately do for you? What does it mean? What can it build? How do you apply it in the context of business? You think about biomedical research, 92% of data that's used in biomedical research is lost. Because when you're doing the research, you didn't quite get all the right sensors in place, and so you can't leverage and use that data. Now, all of a sudden, a good partner of ours has placed that medical research into a real life facility, but can be accessed via the metaverse anywhere. But that facility is 100% sensor enabled. So now you can use and leverage 92% of that information. Or you think about urban construction, 177 billion US dollars lost every year because of construction inefficiencies, not knowing where assets are, miscalculating certain bills. Or talent teleportation. Love this one, right? 64% of who we have in the world around expertise, they would much rather work and live in a virtual environment. Do I go into the office? Do I not go in the office? We're going to talk about this dichotomy of existence between the two. So when you think about the highest impact areas that we've analyzed, and we'll go into each of these, whether it's education, construction, tourism, government, or enterprise, these are the primary areas where we see you can create a tremendous, ultimately, amount of value. Let's think about education. 90% of learners lose most of the information within the first 2 weeks of whatever they've learned. 90%. It's gone after 2 weeks. Imagine playing your favorite video game and having to learn that game over and over again every 2 weeks. That's impossible. But that's what we require of our educational system. Clearly, we can do better. When you think about construction, 67% of construction costs can be avoided if you can model it and understand how that environment will react in a virtual environment before building it in a physical one. You know spacing, you know traffic patterns, you know cities. In other words, you know experiences. When you think about tourism, one of my favorite ones, favorite stat of them all, when you show a customer a virtual experience of an item, they are 130% more likely to visit that location or purchase that item. Again, real live stats and showing the power and impact of where you are. If you think about government as an example, 90% of all government services can be put into a digital or metaverse experience or format. Why is that so important? Today, you only have approximately 10% of those things, of the government services within a metaverse format. Think about the savings, think about the value. Most folks love to talk about the financials in this point. But here's the thing. Algorithms cannot optimize for happiness. Algorithms cannot optimize for happiness. So not every business application of the metaverse, from an enterprise perspective, comes down to dollars and cents. In a government setting, one of the biggest areas or issues of depression among senior citizens is their inability to connect with people. And so one of the things they found, how many of you in this environment, when you go to a store, a retail store, you love to go to that automated checkout line? Who are my automated checkout line people? None of you. A couple. Okay, we got a couple. How many of you like to go and visit a real human when you're going through the checkout? You go to the manual traditional lines. It's about 50-50 split. Okay, what they found out was there was this great opportunity, this company in Europe, and what they said was they actually created a longer wait checkout line because they found that the senior citizens wanted to actually have a connection. They wanted to have a conversation with someone to improve their utility. And so by giving information of the check and teller based on who they're talking to, they actually increase that person's satisfaction. So not all things can be measured from a dollar and cent perspective, especially when you begin to talk about the metaverse. Lastly, 68% of individuals from an enterprise perspective say, if I'm given a choice between working in the virtual world and working in the physical world, I'm going to work in the virtual world. It's a false choice. They don't want to work physically. They don't want to work virtually. They just want to get the job done. They just want to work. We keep putting these two dichotomies together, but in actuality, if I asked all of you, do you value your privacy, you would say yes. Without a doubt, I do. But if I then told you, but how many of you go to the grocery stores and you put everything you're going to buy on a conveyor belt so everybody sees what's happening? You go, well, yeah, I do. But I thought you said you value your privacy. Well, why do you do that? It's because privacy is contextually based. It's directly proportional to the value one receives. Working in a physical or virtual environment is contextually based. It's directly proportional to the value the employee believes they can generate by working in either one of those two environments. Now, here's the stuff that we've been talking about. It's the easy stuff. It's the tech. But I want to talk to you about what I said when I began earlier. I'm a digital humanist. That means that I believe technology is there not to replace us, but to enhance us. When I look in this room and look at this auditorium, I don't see technologists. I see leaders. The world needs you and you and you and you to step up now and lead. Because business leaders and world leaders are focusing on far too much what makes us different. That's what you hear when you look at everything is about what makes us different. The reality and the power of the metaverse, it's not about what makes us different. It's about focusing on what makes us similar, the same. A desire to protect our future, a responsibility to build a better world, not for us, but for them. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005. We just lost a child who died because of poverty. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005. We just lost another. 20,000 children every day die because of poverty. This tech conference, this tech leadership, your call to action is to take this technology and use it to focus the world around what we believe are similar issues, not race, not color, not creed, not things that divide us, but things that bring us together. So when you leave this conference and you take all this great energy and people start telling you what you cannot do and you're worried about what's not possible, I want you to pause a moment, and at the end of the day, I want you to not worry about what you don't know, but I want you to wake up each and every day from this moment forward and challenge what the world tells you and ask you to believe to be true. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Oh. Thanks very much, Joseph. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to follow that, but hopefully our panel can do some job. So I'd like to just welcome our panel members up to the stage. We're going to now have a discussion around how do we take that vision, which Joseph shared with us, and practically start to build solutions that can fulfill that vision and hopefully take us on the journey that Joseph suggested. So if I could ask my panelists to come and join me on stage, that would be fantastic. So we have a range of different panelists with us today, all with a different perspective, services, solutions, and of course, development. So gentlemen, over to you. So if I could first introduce Lewis.
Sure.
Who's going to take us through Mawari, what do they do, introduce himself, and hopefully start to give you a feel for what the opportunities could be.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Luis Ramirez, founder and CEO of Mawari. The Mawari network is a solution that aims to deliver the metaverse to everyone. So let's talk a little bit quickly about the vision. Today in the internet, for example, you press play on Netflix, and within less than a second, you have a full quality movie. It took about 20 years to build infrastructure that get us there. So now, as Richard said, the metaverse word in 2022 was a top keyword, and everybody's imagining industry, digital twins, mixing the digital with the physical world, and so on and so forth. Sci-fi movies like Minority Report or Ready Player One. But people don't stop to think, okay, so what kind of infrastructure is needed to really make that happen? And the answer is that we need an exponential amount of compute and storage that doesn't exist today. So this is what Mawari focuses on, in breaking these bottlenecks and enabling the metaverse. So we call it the elephant in the room, is that the metaverse cannot be delivered at scale to mobile XR devices. This is for very three specific technical problems. The first one is the availability of GPUs on the cloud. And now with 2023, even worse, because everyone is using GPUs for generative AI. So we're challenged by that. Then second one is content size. When you think about the 3D internet, we're talking about 3D content. So it's also exponential in terms of size to what we see with movies or pictures today. So even with a good 5G connection, it takes minutes to download 40 gigabytes, for example. And lastly, the content format. What is the content format? Today, we see 3D content like in movies like Avatar in a 2D screen or maybe with the 3D glasses. But when we talk about these virtual worlds, interoperability, we need to keep the data in 3D and stream it in 3D so that we can actually scale it. So Mawari's solution addresses these three technical bottlenecks by offering a decentralized render network. Also, during 4 years, we created a patent-pending 3D streaming codec that reduces the bandwidth up to 100x, while still keeping the geometry data and all the information needed to reconstruct the content on mobile devices. And finally, the Mawari engine, we call it the engine because we focus on streaming geometry versus streaming pixels. So this is our product offering in three different layers. The Mawari network, which is the decentralized orchestration of compute resources. The Mawari engine, which is our core technology that enables high-quality content on XR devices. Think about, like, we've been called the MP3 of AR. So like MP3 revolutionized music format, and then we went into Napster, and now we have streaming. We're doing the equivalent for XR content. And finally, the application layer we provide to application developers and XR streaming SDK. So here's a quick video of some use cases that we have enabled. For example, this is a fully programmatic digital assistant that is rendered in real time from the cloud to the end user device. Or for example, this flying car that has millions of polygons, real-time ray tracing, something that would not be able to be rendered on a mobile device. So this is a concept video of what the Mawari network is. Think about this blending of the physical and digital worlds. This is based in Tokyo, because Mawari was based in Tokyo. Okay, didn't play. It's not playing. Okay, oh well. So what is the role of the operators in the Mawari network? We're collaborating at 3 different levels and layers. The first one is with the Open Gateway initiative with quality on-demand APIs. Why this is important? Because today, for example, do you have problems sending text messages? It's because we need to prioritize the network when it matters to deliver the right content to the users. Second is validator and render nodes, which provide the compute and the validation of the content. And just to close up, today, this morning, we announced that actually KDDI is the first operator to join our testnet as a part of the GSMA Foundry project, and we are collaborating with Qualcomm as well into the use case exploration. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Lewis. Now, over to Brian. Yeah, fantastic product. And I'm really pleased you're part of the Foundry. If you want to know more about the Foundry, you go down to the GSMA booth. A little plug for myself. So, Brian, we just heard from a developer, but from Accenture's point of view, I know you're looking at products and services and advising customers around the world in terms of how they can start to take advantage of this metaverse opportunity. Maybe you could introduce yourself and share a bit about what you're doing.
Sure. Happy to share a few thoughts, and I might stand up for this. So my name is Brian Smyth. I lead innovation in Metaverse for our comms and media industry in Accenture. If you haven't been to our booth, we're just right behind you here, so come on over, and we have some really cool demos there. But I wanted to first address a question today, because actually as preparing for this, I did a little bit of Googling of Metaverse, and here's some of the news headlines that came up. So there's a legitimate question to answer, I think, for all of us. Is the Metaverse dead? I think a lot of people are questioning and saying, actually, there was this great hype last year. There was lots of excitement. It was probably the buzzword of MWC last year. Where is it today? And here's just a smattering of some of the headlines. And what you're seeing here are things like, obviously, the crypto winter and collapse, some of those scandals. We're seeing things like NFT trading volumes collapse as well. So a lot of that kind of initial burst of excitement has been deflated. So what we wanted to do was understand, where are business leaders' minds on this? Because when you Google it, these are some of the headlines that will come up. So we surveyed 3,800 business executives. And what they told us actually is they don't believe it's dead. They really see it as a valuable part of their business and a valuable growth engine. But what's happening is it's no longer about the big NFT drops or Metaverse by press release, as I like to call it, where every kind of marketing lead was told, we need to do something on the Metaverse, put out a press release. What we're seeing is real value into products and services. So we're kind of making the Metaverse a little bit boring and a little bit more integrated into our daily lives. And when we ask the business leaders how much value exists in the next 3 years, so not 10 years' time, but in the next 3 years, what they told us was about 4% of their revenues they anticipate to come from Metaverse, whether that's extended reality or if that's blockchain. Combined across all industries, that's about $1 trillion in value. So there's a lot of optimism there, but I think what we're seeing is more focus and more grounding in customer problems. So it's less about tech for tech's sake and more about grounding it in actually what are the pain points that Metaverse technology is solving. Rich told me at only 4 minutes or he'd turn off my mic, so I'm going to end with this slide. But here's some of the key use cases we see for Metaverse in terms of where we're working with clients today. And we see it really for particularly communication service providers sitting on a spectrum from evolution. So there's evolutionary services. There's things you're going to be doing to your network today that you need to do, right through to revolution. And that's about repositioning your entire business model, building new products and services, net new revenue for your business. Rich talked about SK Telecom, I think is a good example of metaverse world building, what they've done with IFLand. The middle layer here, I think, is particularly interesting, and that's kind of this industry orchestrator role. So as we look towards the evolution of the internet, which what the metaverse is, we're seeing digital identity, digital wallet, mobile payments. That infrastructure is going to be key, and telcos have a really important role to play in that layer. So again, think about evolution to revolution and consumer to business, and I'll pass on the presentation. Thank you.
So Said, heard from the developer, heard about products and services. I'm guessing part of the puzzle will be devices, and I think that's one area you're obviously focused on to a certain extent. You know,
That is correct. That is correct. Just quick introduction. My name again is Saeed, and I lead the XR business and product at Qualcomm. Excited to be with the panelists here and with all of you guys. Just before I get on what we're doing in XR or for the metaverse, Qualcomm we have been basically the powerhouse of enabling different technologies across different industries. We have been connecting people before, and then we connected things. And now when you imagine we're connecting across all the board, how do we bring all of that together? And that's really what is driving the next big transformation. The next big transformation, which is moving from a 2D kind of interaction with the digital world into a 3D interaction, if not even the world is becoming our big screen. So that's really the bottom line of the next big transformation. And the window to entering into that is going to be through what we call XR, through different variants of it, from AR, VR, MR, any kind of variants that would have, and that's why we're using the, I would say the XR term, just to have all those variants in it. And use cases really go across all kind of spectrums, from consumer to enterprise, from the completely virtual world to mixing up with digital items through the augmented reality. Now, the use cases, you guys have seen them. I'm sure some of you guys have been driving some of those use cases. We can talk a lot about them, and we'll discuss maybe some of those. But really, the spectrum of what can you do with this technology is limitless. The sky is the limit. And we have seen it saving lives. We have seen it saving money. I think I am inspired with Joseph, what he said. It's less about replacing a human. It's how do we make a human better? How do we make our life better? How to make us superhuman? Human even is not enough anymore. And we can talk more about that later on. So what does Qualcomm do for that? So we have really a 4, I would say, pillars kind of strategy. One is we do what we do, is providing the right chipsets that will power those devices. But that's not enough. We are also providing different technologies or working with different partners like Luis, for example, to bring in new technologies that enables different experiences. And also we provide reference designs. Those are the development platforms that will enable partners, developers, idea makers to come really to build their own experiences and show if it's working or not. And finally, Snapdragon Spaces. This is basically, I would say, a platform that we are providing to enable the idea makers, again, to implement that in an easy way. It's a very much open platform, which is based on open standards, like OpenXR, and that's how really we are enabling the ecosystem. So we are expecting this to be enabling all kind of different products. We don't have like any choices across like the spectrum of XR, but we will see the market evolving. I want you guys to be patient. Devices will take time, but there is a lot that we can do today. There's a lot that's been done already, and there is more to come. So it's a journey. It's not like something that we just get done with it. It's going to be a long journey, though, right? And we have seen a lot of devices already launched. By the way, I'm sure you haven't, maybe some of you guys haven't seen any of those devices, but 65 plus devices been already launched just based on our platform. Just to conclude, we look at ourselves as enablers, partners for the industry. We are here, we call ourselves as a ticket to the metaverse because we have all what it takes from the technologies to enable you guys to build those experiences of your dreams. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much. So guys, very different perspectives, different positions at looking at this market. I think, Brian, you touched on the skepticism point, and I think that's one that we should try and address straight away. Is this just a hype cycle? Is it just where we are? I know you've kind of shared some of that, and is that how you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I think with any, and although Metaverse, in many respects, extended reality or virtual reality technology has existed for many, many years. So in many respects, it's not that new. But I suppose a big inflection point was when Meta rebranded. There was a lot of hype, a lot of excitement around it. And as I say, what we're seeing is like any cycle, there tends to be tons of hype, a lot of noise, and then real value will happen. And we've seen this with pretty much every tech cycle. So if we look back 20 years ago with the evolution of the internet, there was the dot-com crash. It didn't mean that the internet wasn't relevant. You know, the internet's a fundamental part of all of our lives today. It just meant that perhaps some of the initial early excitement was not where the ultimate value lay. And I really liked what Syed said around, you know, being patient here, actually. And we've set up a group in Accenture, we call it the Continuum Business Group, or Metaverse Continuum, because we see it as a continuum of technologies. Obviously, the recent evolution of things like generative AI and ChatGPT, that will all form part of the metaverse that we are building.
That's, okay, cool. Lewis, in terms of, you know, you're building these products from a developer's perspective, are you still seeing demand? Are you still seeing the drive?
Yeah, I would echo what Brian said. I mean, there's a hype. Everyone jumps on the bandwagon, and right now it's kind of like the slope of productivity. We still have a lot of demand, and the fact is that KDDI is supporting our initiative. And from now on, we will move from fat to productivity. It is a fate. Is phased. Devices need to evolve, networks need to evolve, the content delivery needs to evolve, but we will get to that point where, yeah, we have one device for everything, and AR, VR, and MR is across the spectrum or the continuum.
That's cool. And Syed, in terms of the devices, I'm guessing there's still real demand for those? And
there is no stopping. Everybody, I mean, there is the macroeconomics, and there is all of us were going through that, but we haven't seen any slowdown in terms of investment to get the device, the state of art of devices to get better. And I'm not saying just that like this, because you guys can look into the devices that you see today here, right? You can see what's coming up. There is no like sign that this is over. For me, I look at it like you're going for the gym every day, and if it's just because one day I feel a little bit tired, I have to give up, you're not going to do anything. So yeah, there are those moments, there are those days where the macro kind of aspect is getting a little bit lower, but we need to continue pushing.
Oh, that's cool. So, and then Brian, you touched on some of the products and services that you think will drive this forward, and those are happening today, right? It's not something for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think when we look at, there's two elements we see to kind of enterprise metaverse. There's the enterprise use cases, so inside of our organizations, and then there's the industrial application inside of industry. And the enterprise side, and it was touched on earlier by Joseph, but training and learning is really, really important. So in Accenture, we've actually brought 200,000 of our new joiners over the last 24 months, onboarded them through the metaverse using Microsoft Altspace. We're now moving on to Mesh for Teams, which is the evolution that Microsoft is bringing to Teams. And to me, this will be a real trigger point, an inflection point for all companies, because suddenly you're going to start having avatars built into Teams by the end of this year. You're going to start meeting your colleagues in virtual beaches and virtual mountaintops for your Teams meetings. So this technology is actually coming probably faster than many people realize into the workplace. The learning side, there's really strong science around the experience of learning on how retention is 30% higher, around effectiveness and efficiency of tasks. And if you think of this, even in, for example, in the airline industry, pilots have been training for in sims for many, many years. What this technology does is democratize it, and it means it is applicable for a much broader spectrum of jobs and roles. And then, of course, we have the industrial metaverse. We have digital twins, which are a huge area of growth. We're building digital twins for a lot of our clients today. It's growing at about, as an industry, digital twin, 38% compounded annually. So it was a kind of $12 billion industry last year globally, but it's going to be, a huge area of growth and an opportunity for the communications industry, given that, for many telcos here, you're building 5G private networks, you're building mobile private networks inside of industrial settings. Layering on the analytics and the actual visualization of that data really makes it real for decision makers inside of these enterprises to speed up decision making, to actually predict where things need to improve. It's adding tremendous value. And I think telcos beginning to offer this as a service will also make them a lot stickier. So I think there's a lot of opportunity on the industrial side, but also within the enterprise.
That's cool. And Simon, from when you're talking about devices, you must be talking to lots of enterprises about the solutions they're developing. What are you seeing? Is there any particular ones which are leading the way?
So I think it's so funny how every vertical is evolving slightly differently into how to leverage the XR as a technology, the metaverse as a concept. Now you're starting a lot of companies even creating chief metaverse officers because they want to explore how this technology is going to make their processes, their communication better. Have we seen this across every vertical from healthcare? Actually, healthcare, not only that I've seen the companies leveraging that, we've seen how lives get saved. We've seen how people get better compared to using existing tools today, like in stroke management, pain management, phobias, and all of kind of things, to just training, simple. Just like Walmart, for example, and I'm sure Brian would testify to that, how efficient, before you need to train somebody for 1 month just to do simple things and make sure they know how to do it. Now you can train them for a few days and they can exercise. You can see exactly how they progress in their learning. To education, I wish we had this when I was learning biology, right? So I can go on and on. Every area there is a ton of leverage for the technology. We do see that every one of these verticals will endorse this transformation. They will have to take it, not because they choose to, but because it does make sense. And that's what we want this to happen.
That's cool. And Lewis, you're making products and services today. What kind of ones are you having customers come to you to talk about?
Well, basically, it depends on the area because, as I said, each is a niche today. So, for example, in Japan, we have a lot more demand on the consumer entertainment side, like things like karaoke or live streaming of avatars as musicians. And in the US, it's more productivity, industrial enterprise, digital twinning, real estate, and so on and so forth.
That's cool. And probably just to wrap up, what you guys probably don't know is that this is actually a bit of a reunion for us three. So we were actually all together at 22 in the strategy meeting with telcos officers, some strategy officers, telling them that they should be thinking about this opportunity of the metaverse. So I think I'll probably just leave you guys with one question each. We met in 22, it was big hype. Today, we're on the journey of getting there. What is it that you expect to see coming within the metaverse by the time we get to MWC24? And I'll probably start with Lewis.
Well, by 2024, I have a big mission to deliver decentralized rendering and enable entertainment and industrial use cases at scale. So hopefully, I think we will be able to deliver together with Qualcomm and KDDI a very compelling demonstration that the metaverse is not really far away, but it is possible to create it today.
That's cool. And Brian, same question for yourself.
I think building on Luis' point, I would see it on what I mentioned around mesh for teams. I will see it impacting every worker in every enterprise over the next 12 months. I think that will be the big leap. So far, people have seen examples, they've heard stories, they've read case studies, they may have played around with some of these environments. I think where we'll move to next year is that everyone will have experienced the metaverse at work within the next 12 months.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
And so
I think, for me, I hope by next year, we're not debating anymore, is the metaverse happening or not? Everybody's convinced it's going to be there. And if we all believe in that, then we're all just down to working and creating experiences and making everybody happy.
that's fantastic. Well, that really brings us to the end. Probably you guys, I guess, will be hanging around for a little bit over in the Industry City Networking Lounge. So please do try and catch up if you've got any questions for these gentlemen. And that really does just leave me to just say a big thank you to everybody for their interest in the session. I hope you picked up something from it. We've got another session taking place after this panel, which will be hosted by our sponsors for the day, who are JP Morgan. And then we have our FinTech drinks reception, which will be starting from 5:45. So thank you very much, everybody, and a big thank you for taking the time out.